Welcome to Spectrum Perspectives, real talk with parents, professionals, and autism advocates, with your host, Cindy Gellermini.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. You're going to meet Christina, who's originally from New York and moved to New Jersey. You'll be able to listen in as we talk about some of her health issues that she's dealt with and then having to get her own son into therapies. At the time of this interview, Lorenzo was only 20 months old and they were waiting for an official diagnosis of autism. You'll learn what's happened to her Wall Street career because she needs time to take her son to therapies and the differences between services in New York and New Jersey. Today we're talking with Christina about her son, and we have never met before, but we met on a mom's autism forum on Facebook, and I joined those recently just to kind of stay on the pulse of what's going on, and especially even to talk to younger moms of younger kids, because I want to know, what's going on, how is the system working, how's the school system working, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm learning from you as I ask you questions, and because my son would be 30 when he was diagnosed. He was born in 1989, and back then 5 in 10,000 kids had autism. It was almost unheard of, and there was no internet, and I had no way of doing any kind of research, and the only thing that you learn is kind of from other parents, and I think it's still kind of the same way. Parents, we kind of learn from each other. So I'm curious to learn what's going on out there now and how the system is working. So hi Christina, thank you for joining me today.
Hi.
So we're going to talk about your son today. What's your son's name?
Lorenzo.
Lorenzo. So how old is Lorenzo?
Lorenzo is 20 months.
Oh, he's a baby. Oh,
Yes.
Oh, okay. You win the prize for the youngest one. So tell me, is Lorenzo your first child? Do you have other kids?
Lorenzo is my only child.
Okay. Okay. So he's the first. Okay. So tell me about your pregnancy. Did you have a normal pregnancy? Any red flags, any kind of issues?
Yes. I'm a 15-year cancer survivor. So from inception at pregnancy, I had to be put on progesterone to help sustain the pregnancy. When we found out it was a viable pregnancy, we progressed forward. And at approximately 5 months, my spleen and my liver became very enlarged. I'm from New York City. I grew up in Staten Island. Mm-hmm. I had prenatal care, very, very good prenatal care out there, but something wasn't right. So I took my care over to Columbia University in Manhattan, and I was scheduled for a C-section. I was put on blood pressure medicine, and I was supposed to be knocked out for my C-section. I'm also a trauma survivor. I was run over by a car 5 years ago.
Oh, God.
So I had sustained severe damage on the left side of my body, which was why they didn't want me to have a natural birth. Mm-hmm. The day of my C-section, the plan of care changed, and I was given the epidural, and I was awake for my C-section. I went into anaphylaxis. I heard the announcement on the OR, trauma to OR, and my baby was born 38 weeks, 5 days, 8 pounds, 2 ounces. And he had fluid in his lungs and was in the NICU for 72 hours. And I had a reaction to anesthesia.
Wow. What kind of reaction?
Anaphylaxis.
Oh, yeah. And what is that? Explain that for people that don't know.
Sure. So for people that don't know what anaphylaxis is, I had a reaction to the anesthetic where I was starting to have a hard time breathing. And I had a reaction where I turned pink. And that could have been prevented if they had stuck with the original plan of care. But again, I'm not a doctor. So, you have to put your faith in the hospital, and they are fantastic.
Right. So he was in the NICU, you said?
Yeah, he was a NICU baby for 72 hours, fluid in his lungs. Right. And then we took him home on day 6.
Okay. Okay. And so did you go home? Did you come and visit him?
No, we were both. I have a lot of health issues with my liver. They were checking me for different types of cancers, because when your spleen and your liver get enlarged, they think it could possibly be a leukemia or a lymphoma. So I underwent, actually, I'm still undergoing about healthcare just to make sure that, it's nothing non-pregnancy specific.
Right. Okay.
And then 6 weeks after he was born, I had a mini stroke.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've been through a lot.
I have.
Yeah. So he came home at 6 days. Did you both go home together?
We did. Yes.
Okay. All right. So at least you didn't have to go home without him. So then tell me about, then how'd it go when you came home?
Everything was going great until 6 weeks after. I was breast and bottle feeding him, and I got very dizzy, and I felt like I was going to faint. And that was the TIA. That was a mini stroke. We found out I had postpartum eclampsia, which was probably what I had the entire time of my pregnancy, the duration of my pregnancy that was missed.
And what is that?
Preeclampsia, protein in the, it's when your body reacts to protein. It doesn't synthesize protein properly while you're pregnant. It causes high blood pressure. It causes gestational diabetes, edema, which is swelling of the extremities, etc.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so then how was the baby's health when you came home?
He was great. He was a thriving baby. From the day he was born, he slept well. He eats well. He was just a great little baby.
Okay, so he had the sucking reflex and he could drink. He was nursing okay and all that.
Well, he couldn't nurse properly because I couldn't get him to latch, so we pumped. And but then once the mini stroke happened, I put him strictly on bottles, formula,
right.
And he never had an issue with transitioning to the formula.
Okay.
And he ate well. He started baby food at the normal milestones in the beginning,
right?
But probably around he was
in the hospital when you had the stroke.
No, I was home. It was 6 weeks after I gave birth.
How did they find out that you had a stroke though? They did a test, or?
I had an MRA angiogram and an MRI and different diagnostic imaging to determine it was a mini stroke.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
But you didn't go in the hospital or anything. You just stayed home.
I did when I had the stroke. I went out here. I moved to Jersey, so it was transitioning because I wasn't in, close proximity to the hospital I gave birth in, which was a challenge because if I had gone to the doctor 3 weeks earlier when I started not feeling well, it could have been prevented. But again, I'm here for a reason, and everything happens for a reason.
So you did go. So you did end up going in the hospital for a while. I was just wondering who was taking care of the baby while you were in the.
My husband, who is my right hand. Thank God for him.
How long were you in the hospital for?
2 days with the mini stroke.
Okay, but then you feel back to normal when you came home. It didn't affect you in any way.
It didn't, but then I had to have emergency gallbladder surgery as well. Just add it to the list. Like I said, I'm like a chameleon.
Wow. Okay. All right. So the milestones were there in the beginning.
In the beginning.
Okay.
And then around 7 months old, I started noticing he wasn't sitting or crawling or sitting up, and I started to get some concerns. He was also very chubby. He was a big baby, which is usually common with preeclamptic babies, right? Because you're building all that protein and you expand, and the kids tend to come out larger, which is why they deliver them at 36, 37, 38 weeks.
Got it. Before they get too huge.
Yeah.
Right.
If I would have went full term, he would have been 10 pounds.
Okay. All right. So that's like 6 months. So at a year, usually you're starting to hear a couple of words. They're learning how to talk. So what's going on then?
So at a year, I decided that it was time for me to seek help. And since I lived in New Jersey, I wasn't familiar with the occupational and physical therapy protocols, but I do work for a very, very large corporation that has extensive healthcare coverage for subspecialty practices. So speaking with the pediatrician, we determined he needed occupational and physical therapy to help build that hand strength and to help him sustain that crawling mechanism. So I used it through
He was not crawling yet at a year old?
Somewhat. I would say he was in a crawling position, but he wasn't consistent. With my son, everything is consistency. He'll do something and then he'll backpedal.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, did you said that he started with the therapies and stuff. So how did you get to that point? Like what were you telling the pediatrician?
Well, the pediatrician was seeing him once a month. He had RSV pretty bad last January.
Which is?
It's that no, I don't know the exact terminology. It's a respiratory infection, upper respiratory tract. It affects children under the age of 3 usually, and it gets them very sick when they need nebulizing and saline and all that stuff.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so this is all right. So let's go back to when he was like 12 months old. So you're probably going for a checkup. I want to know, like, what did you tell them? What was the conversation with the pediatrician where they
Sure.
got to the point where knowing that, okay, maybe he needs occupational therapy and stuff.
So they give you a checklist at every month for the first 12 months. And there's certain milestones that the doctor and the Academy of Pediatrics expects a child to do at a specific age. And they also factor in all of the growth chart as well. So my son, he was on the bigger side, and then like the 90th percentile.
Yeah.
And by 12 months, when he wasn't fully crawling or standing or saying one or two words, the doctor became concerned and said, I think it's in your best interest to seek out physical therapy so that we can help him begin the process of walking and crawling. In addition, because his hand strength was weak, they wanted me to use occupational therapy in conjunction with the PT. So we found a place in Monmouth County. We reside in Middlesex, because my pediatrician's in Monmouth and we're next to each other. It's like 5 minutes. So we went over to this place, this agency, and we started him on a PT and OT regimen, which was not state funded. It was actually, I'm paying out of pocket with my co-insurance and my health insurance to cover the cost of that therapy.
Yeah, because those are the other kind of questions that I want to know. Like, I always keep asking, who's paying for this? Who's telling you,
Mama Bear.
Right, so this is coming out of your health insurance to go to.
It is, but I have a high deductible plan. So I pay $400 a month just to cover me and my husband, per pay period, actually, about 3 something. And then on top of that, we have 80-20, which means 80% is covered, 20% is out of your pocket. So if they bill out $150, I'm on the fence for 20% of that until I reach my deductible, which is $4,000.
How often is he going for therapy?
Initially, at 12 months, he was going once a week for PT and once a week for OT.
Okay, and how much was that?
Oh, about $60 a session.
Okay. Okay, so then you were getting bills for the 20% for that. Okay, and then, all right, so move on. So he starts that at 12 months, then what?
Well, he didn't, by 15 months, he still wasn't walking and crawling. This was around November. And that's when I got on the phone and called the state and said, I need help here. Because now he's not talking.
Did you call in the state? What organization did you call?
There's a phone number for the state. I have to look it up and I could get you that info. But there's see, the challenge with New Jersey compared to New York. New York, everything is centralized because it's a city, right? The 5 boroughs, you have the city of New York. In Jersey, when you live in Middlesex and your doctor's in Monmouth, they give you a phone number for your county. And I think it was New Jersey EI, NJEI, something. I could get that for you. And we did an early intervention evaluation where they made recommendations on the type of services my son should receive.
Okay.
They suggested PT and OT, but I was already one step ahead of that, starting at 12 months. They also wanted what we call DI, which is developmental instruction.
Yeah, that's something new that I'm learning about. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't know
that
exactly what it is, but I'm hearing the term being thrown out on the Facebook pages.
Yeah, and I'm probably the one who initiated that conversation. So that is where the state says, okay, based on your income from the previous year, which was a pre-COVID income, you're on a sliding scale based on your family income. So for me, I'm at the top end, and it's ridiculous what I'm paying, and it's virtual. So the person can't come into the house because that specific therapist I was assigned, I had the option to select in person versus virtual. Initially, I wanted to start with virtual to see if it was even helping. And I'm paying for that. So that's around $80 a session.
That's for the DI.
Just for DI.
And what do they do exactly? Tell me what these virtual sessions are.
So she comes on the screen and she makes suggestions for the parents to help modify his behavior and development. In other words, they teach you how to model so that you could get your son to start verbally expressing his needs. Because now my son at 19 months is still nonverbal. He has maybe 3 or 4 words and they come and they go. February 25th, I'm taking him to New York to get him a developmental neurologist to see if there's something neurological going on from the result of his birth. So the DI sessions last for 1 hour. They're really 45 minutes because she needs some time to write up her notes, but they basically give you suggestions and strategies to help get your son or daughter to verbally engage. And they determine if it's behavioral modification that's needed to help him get over his milestones. So we do a lot of clapping, a lot of signing, teaching your son or daughter how to sign, a lot of trying to get them to point. My child doesn't point. He doesn't speak. It's mostly yelling, tantrums, just to get him, because he's frustrated. And the challenge also is, yes, we're in a COVID world, but he's also in daycare, which I pay for $1,300 a month. And because of COVID, and because he's not at the age appropriate level, he's still in the baby room. So he's not even getting the correct social interaction with kids his age.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so DI, so what is he getting speech?
He's getting speech through my insurance. Now,
they come to
so
daycare, they do this virtually. How do they do it?
No, so what I got frustrated with the first agency we were using back at 12 months, where we were getting PT and OT, because they kept changing his therapist. There was no consistency. In this space of behavioral modification, ABA, all the stuff we're talking about, if anything should resonate with these agencies, it should be consistency. The same person should be teaching your kid as long as they possibly can. But because of the way New Jersey operates in comparison to New York, and because these jobs at these agencies pay lesser than working for a Board of Ed, so to speak, what happens is when these teachers get accepted into the Board of Ed in the various counties, they up and they leave from the agency. And the agency is left scrambling with people right out of school. And it was impacting him. So I got fed up, and I had to advocate for myself. I had to sit down with the, I had a discussion with the lady who managed the first place. And then I started speaking on the autism site. That's why I joined it, to find out places I could bring him to get him the help he needs so that he's age appropriated. And I found another place where he's now getting OT and speech twice a week for a half-hour session so that it's not too much sensory stimulation. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, I'm keeping the DI the 1 day a week for that 1 hour duration, until I could hopefully find
the OT and the speech. Is this on Zoom or what?
No, we're in person. We go to an agency. We go to a place. It's literally 2 minutes from my house. It's right near where our daycare is, which is also good. Okay. And I'm happier with it.
How do you have time to do that when you're working?
Well, that's the fun question. So I was a career mom. I'm 14 years on Wall Street. I'm also a nursing student. I had to cut back through HR, which in corporate America in a male-dominated industry isn't the greatest way to go. To get a 4-day work week, and it's affecting my career. My career it's fallen apart.
Wow. So, how are you taking him though if he's in daycare? Like, do you take him early in the morning? You take him.
I go 4 days a week to daycare. 1 day a week, I keep him home to do.
And then that's when you do the therapies. All that. Mm-hmm. So because you need that 1 day off to take him to his therapies, it's affecting your career.
Oh, it destroyed my career.
Wow.
That's why I'm going to school, because if I don't go to school, I'm going to have no job.
Career, and that makes sense. That's why you want, going to school to do something different.
I have to. No one wants to. There's no empathy in corporate America. They preach about diversity and inclusion, but that's the problem with this whole thing. And then why we need the state's help, right?
Right.
You know, in New York City, these services are funded with your taxpayer dollars. In New Jersey, there's a big disparity, even by county. There's people that are down south that don't get the services, the IEPs, the paras, whatever you want to call it, in some of the schools. We're not inclusive. And this is where the state is
as well. Somebody down the shore was saying they don't get what they get in North Jersey, which is interesting because I'm in North Jersey. So that's interesting to me that they're not getting the same services in the same state. But because
I mean, for me to help get my son ahead, again, we don't have a diagnosis until 2 weeks from now, February 25th. Okay. We don't know.
I was going to ask you that if you have a diagnosis, so you still don't. And what do you think?
My sister-in-law is an early interventionist in New York City. My nephew is autistic. My niece has auditory processing. My cousin has Asperger's. That term autism is such a broad term now, right? Mm-hmm. There's no more definitive diagnosis with Asperger's versus auditory versus. I could think he's on the spectrum. Mm-hmm. In what way, shape, or form, we don't know. But the best bet is to get the early intervention as soon as possible so that he could become, go up in school in the regular gen ed classes.
Mm. Yeah, because when I'm talking to moms that have older ones, their kids didn't have anything until they hit 3, 4 years old when they went to preschool. But
Yeah.
now moms are more on the ball, more now than we did.
Yes.
And you're starting a whole lot earlier. I mean, you're
Mhm.
starting at 12 months. I mean, that's great. I mean, because I've heard like 18 months people are starting, and that's why I ask questions like, who did you go to? How did you know? Because but pediatricians are handing you a list now, where they never did that before. They're
Sure.
handing you all that, look for all these signs and these milestones, and now
Yeah, the lack of eye
pediatricians
contact. That was the first thing when I would call his name and he won't even look at us.
Yeah.
But he's a happy kid. He's jovial. He smiles. He's engaged. Could it be that mommy's too overbearing? Probably. I'm an Italian mom. Of course I am.
And a New Yorker on top of it.
And a New Yorker.
Now, my very first interview I did with Patty, she was in New York and then moved to New Jersey as well. Her son is a lot older though, but she got everything right away, and everything was paid for by the state of New Jersey, like all his therapies and everything in New York.
It depends on the severity, I think.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know if it had if I don't remember if I asked her about her income, like did it matter what your income level was or whatever, and I'm pretty sure she said it doesn't matter, just everything.
It's a sliding scale though.
She had said I know she got everything for free. How that, I got from the conversation that everybody gets the same care no matter what
I think from age 3 and up, if they have the diagnosis of autism, then you could get free preschool, free occupational therapy. But this is
because New Jersey does that. Once they hit 3, the school has to send them to school.
Yeah.
But beforehand, I don't know how it works.
And this is the challenge, right? There's so much misinformation, and there's no centralized or governance on where all this information is located. Every county has different rules that drive what services are offered. People are telling me you should sell your house and move to Manalapan. They're a blue ribbon school district and they have programs and IEPs. But to sell my house when all the New Yorkers are moving here, right? And we're getting outbid $80,000, $90,000. I can't, especially with my job on the line. So you really feel stuck. I feel stuck.
Well, because I know you said your therapists were in Monmouth County and you're in Middlesex. So like, are you allowed to cross over into a different county to get help, or do you have to stay in your county?
If it's going through your health insurance and you're paying, yeah, you could go anywhere.
Right.
But, this is the challenge, right? We need to, as a group or as a unit, come up with a plan, put some controls in place. See, this is the Wall Street in me, right? Controls and audits. There you go. I'd be great at that job.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's what I want to know from you. So like usually now I start talking to people, what school do they go for? What are they doing after 21? You're in the very beginning of all of this. So
Yeah.
but you're having that struggle now. And now we know how important early intervention is. And these kids have to get help from the time they're babies. From, I was saying 18 months, I would say 12 months. As soon as you start noticing, speech should be there at 12 months. If it's not there, let's get them help right away, right?
Absolutely.
So how do we fix it?
That's it for part 1 of Christina's story. Be sure to tune in for our fiery part 2 of our interview, where she talks about the difference between services in New Jersey versus in New York, and her ideas of how to fix a broken system. To see the video version of the show, go to our YouTube channel, Robbie and Me, Autism Reality. If you're interested in buying our book series, Robbie's World and His Spectrum of Adventures, the link will be in our episode description, as well as my Instagram and Facebook pages. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like more content, please be sure to hit that like button, follow us, and don't forget to leave us a great review. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of today's episode. Be sure to join us again next time to hear the second half of the interview on Spectrum Perspectives.